Interest rates are going up. Trying to get ahead is mighty, mighty tough. Bill collectors at my door. I need someone to help me raise my credit score.
Consumers, are you...
Welcome everybody. Welcome again to the Pearl Polto Show. And this is the show to educate you, and you're going to be sitting in your living room as you're getting educated. Today, as I always say at the beginning of many of my shows, what does it do to get your attention? But today's show will get your attention. Why? It's the information today could save you from financial destruction. And the information that you think you can go to your attorneys. Well, today we're going to talk about the laws on credit. But before I forget, next week you don't want to miss next week's show. Next week is your doctor turning you into a drug addict? You don't want to miss this show. I have a guest on that's really, she's really angry, and she wants to tell you why. And so you don't want to miss that. We also have a senior citizen in credit. We're trying to get the bandstander on, Bunny Gibson, on in August. So we're going to have a lot of good shows. But I think today's show is super important to everybody out there. And here's why. And please don't take this information and just say, well, you know, it's not going to happen to me, because it can, and most likely it will. The information today could save your life financially. And I always say, and I'm a paralegal, and let me remind you, I'm a paralegal, not just a credit expert and author, but I didn't become a paralegal to practice law. I wanted to know what the attorneys know. And the attorneys do not know credit laws, and I'm going to go into that today with an experience. Then you'll see how the attorneys do not know credit laws, just bankruptcy laws. And that could hurt you. It can hurt you big time. And I'm going to let you know why, and the mistake that one actually did for a consumer. So this mistake could be your future. It could be your finances. It could be your bank account. So if you think you have a friend, relative, or that's an attorney for years, let's say 20 years, 30 years, think twice of what I have to say today. Because today we're going to talk about the laws on credit. First of all, what is so fair about the Fair Credit Reporting Act? You know, it's a legal document. The Fair Credit Reporting Act, these are laws out there that you should be aware of. And even though you think it's boring, some of them are not boring. As you see, the Fair Credit Reporting Act is a legal document. It's drafted by law. It grants permission for all creditors, except some favor the creditors and not the consumers. What is law? We now see there is no justice in our country for most of the poor and most of the middle class. We see attorneys turning away cases because you don't have the money. We see creditors treating you with no respect because you can't pay the bills anymore for years. And after learning you cannot pay a bill, doctors, an example, will not see you for your illness because you have no insurance and cannot pay. We call 911 in some states where help doesn't arrive till 4 hours later, knowing you were the beating victim. Are all these people in it for the title and the salary alone? Have their titles put them on such an ego trip that they feel they can make the statement to you, a consumer, I am the attorney, you're not. How many times have you heard that? Or when did you become the doctor or a bill collector? I'm going to tell you what to do, so listen. Today there's no mercy when it comes to losing your homes. Cars are being repossessed. And to a doctor, you're a number. Today's society, pleading, begging, even dying, will not help you out. In law, there's no good and bad attorneys anymore. Unfortunately, there are many bad attorneys, bad in the word that their ego is bigger than your case. Is this a crime? Is there a crime to ask them your opinion or give them your opinion? Is this a crime when you talk to your attorney? It's been stated that there's one attorney to every 1,000 people out there, and some of these attorneys are now bill collectors. Congress, who wrote these laws, are out to protect you, and yet they don't understand their own laws. Years ago, if you remember, the congressman wrote rubber checks. Nothing was done. But if a consumer did this and wrote a rubber check, would be in jail by now. The few of these laws, before I tell you what happened with this one situation, get a pencil out, get a paper, and write these laws down. Try to remember them, because this has to do with you. One, as we all know, is the Fair Debt Collection Act. The Fair Debt Collection Act is to all bill collectors. They're not allowed to harass you. They're not allowed to call you all hours of the night. They're not allowed to do a lot of things. They're not allowed to threaten you. But did you know? When they call you, how many people out there change their telephone number because they're tired of the harassment? But did you know you have a free lawsuit case if they do harass you? It's a possible lawsuit case because they're not allowed to harass you. But they do know. And what's the one thing they do know is they know you do not know your rights. Pretty sad. Pretty sad what bill collectors are capable of doing just over the dollar. And one day we will have a bill collector on there. But that's just one law. And that Fair Debt Collection Act is a super law. I write letters every day to the Federal Trade Commission. I write letters every day to bill collectors for violating your rights or for calling you at your job. Are they allowed to call you at your job? No. No. But do they get away with it? Because it's verbally, your word against their word. But did you know that if somebody was in the room, or your employees was in the room, or your employer was in the room, and you heard them on a speakerphone, it's a possible lawsuit case. And let me remind you, it's a free lawsuit case. Now, let me also go into the Fair Debt Collection Act, because it's not just for bill collectors. Years ago, attorneys, I think they ran out of lawsuit cases because they went into the collection company. They became bill collectors. But they were doing a lot of things illegally. And they did so many things illegally that the Federal Trade Commission said, hey, you have to go by the same guidelines as the bill collectors. Do they? No. No. Do they get away with it? No. And yet somebody, which I'll go into, which happened to one consumer, so you'll understand, but they feel they're the attorney, you're not, and they can do anything they want. You will get scared because they will say they're the attorney. And some of my clients sometimes, they'll call up these offices, and some of them I'll get the calls from my office. But I know how to talk to these people, and I want you to know how to talk to these people. An example is last week, somebody called and said, I'm from the office of ABC firm. And I said, are you an attorney? He didn't answer me. I said, I will repeat again. Are you an attorney? No, I'm not an attorney, but then why are you harassing? Why did you say as if you were an attorney, which is illegal? And there's a Privacy Act. So do not talk about my client, do not talk about me, and do not harass me, because I'm hanging up. And if you call my office again, I'm going to consider this harassment. But you see, this is what you should be doing. Don't get your telephone number changed. Let them know you know your rights, and they will know. And I'm going to tell you, we're going to go back to that, the Fair Debt Collection Act. We're going to go back to that because years ago, there was no attorneys as bill collectors. It was just the bill collectors. And how it works is, if you owe a bill, naturally, the creditor cannot afford it, they charge it off. They write it off. And they sell it to a bill collector. Or they give it to a bill collector. Well, that bill collector, if he can't get anywhere with you, or if he can, some of these bill collectors happens to be an attorney. And the attorney now takes the long way. They take the legal route to scare you. I'm from the office of ABC Company, and you owe this bill. So what happens there? See, if you have a lawsuit and they put a judgment against you. Now, why is everybody so afraid of this? Because a judgment, they're all afraid of a judgment. They can't take your home. They cannot touch your house. The only one that can touch your house is your mortgage company. So these attorneys that say, well, we're going to come after you. Well, depending on your state, Pennsylvania, an example, Florida, an example, is an exempt state. They can't attach your wages. But they can freeze your bank account. And they do it to get your attention. And these are the attorneys, not the bill collectors. So they scare people. Now, what can you do? What can you do if they froze your account? Now, this is interesting because this happened to a consumer. Not giving names, Privacy Act, but this happened to a consumer and was a senior citizen, and they froze the account. And she called me and she said, they froze my account, and I gave it to our attorney. And she said, well, we have a long-time friend with this attorney. I've known him for 30 years. I said, fine. Then here's what they're supposed to do. I know what I can do. And we have a consumer protection attorney. All he does is sue bill collectors. But because it's a froze account, it's another field. So what she did, she hired her own friend who happened to be an attorney. And at the same time, it bothered me because not that many attorneys know credit laws, and I know this. So I contacted her and I said, how did you ever make out? I hope you unfroze that account. And the reason why I said this, her husband's name was on the account. Now, let me stress this. When I said get a pencil and paper, if your spouse is on your account, let's say the credit card is in your name only, and yet the bank account is in two people's names. Well, they're not allowed to freeze it. It's against the law. And yet, some attorneys know you don't know the law. The majority of bill collectors feel you don't know the law. So what happened is there's two people's names on this account, and this attorney froze it. And I said to this client, consumer, they're not allowed to do this. They're violating your rights, because there's two people's names on that account. And they're getting away with it because they want you to call them, to pay them. But it's a bill collector. So what happened was I did a follow-up. I contacted her and I said, how'd you ever make out? Did you ever get your money unfroze? She said, no, it's still in litigation. I said, what do you mean litigation? What kind of litigation? There's no such thing. And she said, well, it's in our attorney's hands. I said, well, let's call your attorney. Let's call your attorney. Well, we did call on a three-way line, the attorney, and I let the office know. First of all, I guess it was a secretary, and I let her know, well, one, who I was, and the laws, and I read her something. And I said, I'm not sure. Many attorneys do not know credit laws. I said, credit laws are found in Congress, not in law school. And I told her I was a paralegal, but I also gave her, well, I said it. She had me on a speaker. And I said, there's an Exempt In Protection Act that was passed in 2009. And that Exempt Income Protection Act protects bank accounts from being frozen, from government benefits, pensions, earned incomes. It goes on and on. If the balance was less than $2,500 and the balance was $1,700. So if your account, if you're on Social Security, veterans, disability, all the way, public assistance, whatever. But if your account was frozen after 2009 and you think your bank was not complying, you could also report them. Now what happened here is the banks get so scared, the banks get petrified because they get a court order from these attorneys and they think, oh we better give them, freeze this account. What kind of bank do you want that's in the interest of the attorney and the bill collector and not you? As I said to this person, after you unfreeze this, take your money out and let them know why. Because they're more interested in giving it to the attorney. In the meantime, but that wasn't my beef. My beef was I was on a three-way line with her 30-year, quote, attorney, and I told him the law, which he was unaware of. The 2009. Now, how do I know it? And he doesn't. I'm not the attorney. I could have said to him, as they say to the consumers, I'm the attorney, you're not. Well, I wanted to say to him, I'm not the attorney, you are. So all you have to do is look up this law. But it comes from Congress. So this is why I try to educate you, the people. Educate you, the people. And the attorney said, well, yeah, I know what they did was illegal. But then we'd have to, if they answer the legal aspect, we'd have to answer it with a lawsuit. And I'm saying, you know what? They know they violated her rights. All you have to do is write them a letter and write the bank a letter and saying within 24 hours or I'm going to report this to the Federal Trade Commission. You don't have to go all the way out to say anything else. But he didn't understand. And the consumer seen he didn't understand. And it was interesting because it's pretty sad and it was glorifying at the same time when a consumer, she sees the light, but the attorney didn't. Because he didn't know the laws of credit. And now when I always say, I became a paralegal because I wanted to know what the attorneys knew about credit laws. Nothing. They know bankruptcy laws. We do have a consumer protection attorney. All he does is sue bill collectors, but he doesn't take the next step when there's a judgment. Or if somebody says, oh, I got to do something. I have a default judgment against me. You don't even know what the word is. And yet you're petrified. What is a default judgment? I will tell you what a default judgment is. It means you didn't show up in a courtroom. And if you're in a state that's not exempt, what can happen? Duh, nothing. If you showed up and they didn't have your information, it'd be dismissed anyway. And they can't take your home. The only one that can take your home is your mortgage company, and that's a tax lien, not a judgment, not a default judgment. Don't let the words scare you. Exercise your rights, because these are your laws that they were giving to you by Congress. And yet, people are so afraid that they think the attorneys know it all. Sometimes some people think the doctors know it all. I can't wait to do next week's show. But when you think that the attorney's supposed to know it all, you have to remember when you study law, you have different phases. You have a corporate attorney, you have a car accident attorney. There's many different attorneys. He's not an expert in every field. Just like your MD. Your MD can't perform heart surgery on you. He's not a heart surgeon. So the same thing with attorneys. Just because you hear the word attorney, lawyer, they don't specialize in everything either. So people, you have to wake up and understand what your rights are. That's the Fair Debt Collection Act. And that act was passed for you because the bill collectors who could be attorneys harassing you. The other bill, the other law that's so important to you is called the Fair Credit Billing Act. 1975. It's not that far off, really. The Fair Credit Billing Act is, and write it down, it's in my books, the Fair Credit Billing Act is, if you have a dispute with your credit card company and you're disputing them, you have the right, but you have to put it in writing. A lot of people love that phone to pick it up. Don't pick up the phone. Put it in writing. Say to your credit card company, I am disputing this bill. Well, what happens is, and I'm disputing this bill where I'm not going to pay for it. Well, the law states under the Fair Credit Billing Act, they have 90 days to investigate your complaint. They can't report you as late on a credit report, or they can get sued themselves and report it. Now, the Fair Credit Billing Act is also to your advantage. But does the creditors know this? No, a lot of them don't. A lot of the bank managers that I go in don't know the credit laws. You know, and this is so sad. When I do my homework, and I ask some of these creditors, are you familiar with this? No. Then how are they hired? Do they have to take a test? No. You can apply and you may get hired as well. And that's the Fair Credit Billing Act. So it's a law that's vital to you to know. Now, you've heard me say many times the Sailor and Soldiers Relief Act. Well, that's for the people that are in Iraq. These are the people that are losing their homes, their cars. They're coming back. They don't have their homes. They don't have their cars. Why? Because the bank managers don't know the laws. And because the bank managers don't know the laws, they're losing their possessions when they come back. Some of them are homeless. And the reason why they don't know the laws, and I love it, because Congress, they know what's going on. Our president knows what's going on. And let me tell you, how many times do we have to change the law? The sailor and soldiers of 1908, then it went to 1918, then it went to 1940, then it went to 19... How many times do we have to change it, amend it, and no one's listening anyway? Their soldiers are still losing their home. And yet, there's valuable lawsuit cases against these banks and creditors. And now, here's the problem. Where are the attorneys to fight it? Where are the attorneys when they break the law, when they don't even know the law? We're in a no-win situation, people, and I'm not the only one out there. God forbid. I mean, to my clients, I'm God, but God forbid, because you have a lawsuit. Where are you supposed to go? You go to an attorney, any attorney, because you think they know, and they say, oh, easy, file bankruptcy. Why would you file bankruptcy when you have all these rights that your rights were violated? So why in the world would they turn the tables around and tell you to file bankruptcy? Because that's the only thing they know. You have to know more than the system. You have to know more than the attorneys. You have to know more than the bill collectors. What do I have to do to turn this country around? What do I have to do to turn a city around for you to exercise your rights? And I've been doing this for 30 years. Has things changed? Yes. Yes, things have changed, but not to my likings. Because now, to me, it's gotten worse. It's gotten worse when the attorneys are the bill collectors now. It wasn't like this years ago. There was also another law that was there to protect you, the consumer. That was the Privacy Act. And that was passed 1974 as well. And, you know, that was barring agencies from obtaining information. Now, look at all the telemarketings out there, people. You get the calls every day. But there's a Privacy Act. 1974, remember the year, big deal. But this bars agencies from obtaining information for the purpose of using another. Loophole. Let me tell you the loophole. The laws let agencies share data anyway. Half of your telemarketings are given to them by the credit bureaus. Telemarketing. Selling your name. Is this legal? No. Yet it happens all the time. Loophole. So why do we have laws? Why do we have Congress? Why do we have anything out there if no one's following the laws? And yet if you go to your attorney to say, hey, you know, do I have a lawsuit? I don't know. Let me check it. And then they do you wrong because the client, the consumer that froze her account, the only thing her attorney was going to do, and it shocked her. It shocked me when I heard him say, well, I'll negotiate with that bill collector. He was asking from $1,700 to $1,300 till we can close the case. Her rights were violated. They weren't supposed to even take anything out of her account. They weren't supposed to freeze the account. And yet they did. And yet after I'm speaking Greek to this attorney and I'm saying they're not allowed to do that. Oh, I know. Well, if he knows, take the next step. But the reason he couldn't take the next step, he didn't know what to do. What law can I sue them with? He would have to go into credit laws, which he was favorably saying, I don't know. I don't know. I don't specialize in credit. It's pretty sad when you have this. The other thing, there was another act that was passed. And you all know this, 1987. These are not 50 laws from the 50s, where a bank may not hold your money. Now, this is where you deposit something, you wanted to withdraw it. Now, they can take your money out the next day. You can take your money out the next day. But years ago, they were holding it to make interest. And everybody was bouncing checks. Now they're not allowed to do this. Do they still do it? Yeah, a couple of banks still do it. It's called the Truth in Saving. This was 1993. This helps consumers by requiring banks they cannot advertise a higher rate. That's also a lawsuit, but it's not that it's a lawsuit. let me tell you, it's not that it's a lawsuit or who could sue who. Like the Fair Credit Reporting Act. If you feel any credit bureau, and I do it every day for my clients, has violated your rights, you have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to sue the credit bureaus. I did sue the credit bureaus in the 80s. But if you ever go to find an attorney's office, sometimes you're not speaking to the attorney. Sometimes you're speaking to a paralegal. Now, the difference there, naturally, the attorney is licensed. A paralegal is not licensed. They're trained in school and they get a diploma, as I did. But most of our government agencies uses paralegals because why? It's cheaper. The Justice Department, Federal Trade Commission, even the Health Department. They all use paralegals because it's a cheaper way, because of the attorneys are going to charge them an arm and a leg even for a phone call. They charge it. Is it right? Is it fair? No. No. What happened to one consumer when these laws are out there? And I wanted to know, I wanted to make sure I knew every law out there. And I said, these laws are not boring. These laws are out to protect you. But you have to know them. And there's no schools out there. There's not even school out there for credit schools. That's why I do seminars. There's no schools. That's why I'm doing this show, the Pearl Polto Show. This is why I do the show on WWDB, Your Credit. It's to let you know. But the frustrating part with you, and I see it, and I love it, because the consumer was saying, as this one consumer did yesterday, and said to me, I am so angry. Now I understand it. They violated my rights with my husband's name on it. And no one knows what to do. And that attorney did not know what to do. He's passing the buck. He was passing the buck. Well, go find a credit expert. And I said to her, mail me everything. I'm the one that will write the letters. I'm the one that knows the laws. If you have a credit problem, if your bank account was frozen, don't put your head under the covers. It's going to come back and haunt you. And I talk to so many clients, so many consumers, and I sometimes get angry. And I get angry, not at you, I get angry because I see what's going on. And a couple people will say, wow, you're really mean. It's not that I'm mean. It's that what I'm hearing. Like today, if the guy's listening out there and, he said, well, here's what I did from 2009. Here's everything that I've done. And I'm listening and listening and listening. And I wanted to scream and shout, but I couldn't, but then I did. And I said, why did you waste all this valuable time? You could have sidetracked all of it. You could have bypassed everything you did. Well, I hired an attorney. Well, that's great you hired an attorney, but what's he doing? There are attorneys. I'm not against attorneys. Some of my closest friends are attorneys. Carrie Flitter, he's the attorney with he sues, it's all he does is sue bill collectors. And this guy, he knows every credit law when it comes to bill collectors. My expertise is all credit. All credit, not money. There's a big difference between credit and money. But I get upset when I see we, the people, when something happens that shouldn't happen to you. Something should not happen to you, and you don't know what to do. And you're saying, they froze my account. My house is in foreclosure. This is what's going on with me. So I'm trying to educate you. Like last week I had the mortgage guy, and we got so many calls on that because so many people were losing their homes. They didn't have to. Many people's bank accounts. See, there's state law and there's federal law. If you understand, state law naturally is different states. We're in Pennsylvania, there's Jersey, and each state is different what their congressman does. Like Pennsylvania is an exempt state. To know the meaning of the word exempt is they're not allowed to attach your wages. Not allowed to attach your wages. But Jersey, they are allowed to attach your wages. Delaware, they're not allowed to attach your wages. So there's a whole list. If you want to know what your state is, I'm asking you to email me or call me, and I will let you know what your state is. Is it exempt or not exempt? But even though your state could be exempt, look what happened to this person in Pennsylvania. He froze her account. Now, you're not allowed to freeze an account. That bill collector is not allowed to freeze your account with somebody else's name on that bank account. Not allowed to do it. So why would the banks allow it? You know why? They're scared too. They get a court order from a bank and they get scared. If you go to my website, pearlpolto.net, you're going to see a video. Please go to my website. Watch that video. It's channel NBC did it. This is where the sheriff department banged on the door. He thought he had a gun in his hand, everything else. Watch that video. This is how far they go because they think, sorry enough to say, you're the stupid ones. I don't care what kind of business you're in. I don't care if you're the president of an organization. To them, you're all the same. If they can get away with murder, they will. But you have to know what to do, what not to do. And I'm so sick of hearing, well, I've known this attorney for ages. I've known this doctor for a long time. They make mistakes. And just because, and this is one, sorry that I was on that three-way line, but in one way, when the call was over, I said to her, what did you learn from this? She said, what I learned I really didn't like hearing. Here's my attorney for 30 years that I thought was a good friend of the family. He's negotiating with this bill collector to pay him something. I said, you picked that up? She said, yes, I did. He didn't even mention how they violated my rights because my husband's on the account. Because he didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to do. So it's not that I'm blaming the attorney even. Because the attorney didn't know what to do either. But don't use the phrase, if you're attorneys out there, don't try to intimidate people. Don't use the phrase, I'm the attorney, you're not. Because it's going to backfire. It's going to backfire. You know there's many malpractice cases out there against attorneys. But credit is a different story when it comes to it. Not that everybody knows about credit. I always say I'm in the twilight zone. In the 80s, I used to say I was in the twilight zone when it came to credit laws. I had to pro se my own case against the credit bureau. No attorney understood credit laws. But I won. I won because I had to do some homework. The attorneys could do the same homework I did if they want to, but they don't want to specialize it because each one has their own specialty. You know, the consumer said to me yesterday, you should have been an attorney. I really wish you were an attorney. How hard you fight for the people. And I said to her, honestly, and I'll say to you, no, I don't want to be an attorney. I'd rather be a consumer advocate because I can do anything I want. I can say anything I want. The attorneys are liable to the Bar Association. I'm not. So I can do what I want, say what I want. The attorneys can't. But the attorneys don't tell people to file bankruptcy if there's no need for it. Don't tell people you don't have a case against this bill collectors because there's two people's names on it because you don't understand it. Or don't tell people you're in the wrong, it's a wrong lawsuit that you only have to sue them eventually, and you don't want to do that because you know nothing about credit. And that's the situation that happened. Well, I don't want to sue this bill collector because I don't know what to do after the fact. Just suppose he responds to me. And I said, that bill collector is not going to respond to you because he already knows he violated her rights under the law. He already knew it. So he's not going to sue. He's not going to be stupid. He can lose his job. Now, what I'm going to do, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to write to the whole nation about her case, the Federal Trade Commission. I'm going to write to everybody and to the president of this bill collector company. Because what he did, and then go to the attorney to say, here's it. Here's the homework. Here's everything on here. Now sue. Now you can go to court. Because now I want to sue. She wants to sue. If you knew your rights out there, And somebody said to me, Pearl, you know a lot of things about credit, and I do. I always say I'm the icon, Trudy Haynes calls me the icon of the credit world. I get so many titles, the Don Quixote, the female Rocky. It's not the titles. What frustrates me is it's people like you thinking it's going to go away. I've written books on credit. Go on YouTube. First one was called In America's Bad Credit, a Prison Term, how it started. And then there's We the People of Credit Rights Too. And then there's Credit Lifeline. Then there's Pearl Polto's Easy Guide to Good Credit. And then Doctors Don't Lie, They Bury Their Mistakes. And then Enough is Enough. Are We Doomed? Is anybody listening? Does anybody know why we're in the crisis we are in? And then they say, well, I don't have to worry. I have an accounting. I have an attorney. I have everybody in the family. I have best friends. And yet they don't know. Some of them, as of yesterday, did not know how to help this woman. And she said to me, Pearl, if it wasn't for you calling up to do a follow-up and to push, we wouldn't have been on a three-way line with him. And he said he didn't do nothing. He hasn't done nothing. So I'm sitting here waiting for him to do something to unfreeze my account. He didn't even know what to do. It didn't start. And that bill collector's in his glory. You know why the bill collector's in his glory? Because he sees he has an attorney that doesn't know their rights either. So he's saying, I'm going to keep it froze. It's pretty sad when the attorney would say, listen to Pearl. She knows what to do. I'm not an attorney, but I wouldn't sue. I would threaten him to the point where if he did not unfreeze her account in 24 hours, not 3 weeks, not a month, that she can't take her money out. So there's loopholes. I wrote to you. I said all the loopholes that they have. Well, I have loopholes too. I have loopholes with laws too, just as they do. But all these loopholes that Congress has, there's a loophole. Everything that I've said, there's a loophole. The Privacy Act 1974 bars agencies from obtaining information from one person. Telemarketing, it's called. Loophole. The law's exception lets agencies share data anyway. So when you pick up your phone, you're getting all these telemarketings. Who's giving them to you? Well, now I'm telling you who's giving them to you. It's the credit bureaus. And everybody shares your name. And then they put another law out. Well, they can't do this anymore. So they keep on amending laws. So what's the problem? The problem is who you're putting in office. The problem is, if we have a law that's constantly being amended, let's look at some common sense. You just killed somebody out in the street, but you have a cause, and you killed that person for a reason, and the loophole is, well, let's pass another law. Let's get them out in a year. Let's make this a loophole. And then we say, the law is very vague, as we see. There's many crimes that are committed. And yet, if the government, if the banks, if somebody that's not a consumer that commits these laws, they get away with it. And they get away with it because you either know someone or, it's swept under the covers. But if you're an ordinary consumer, you're not going to get away with it. Who's there fighting for you? Who's there on your side? And the only people that are not fighting are the ones that don't care. So they hire people, but they sometimes, sadly enough to say, you're hiring the wrong person. I said yesterday, I want to do another show, and this was bothering me. This was in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, where you see on the streets homeless. And I said, I want to do a show on this. I want to do a show on this because half these people have signs on the street by saying, I'm waiting for my disability check. Give me something. And I stopped the guy and I said, you know what? You have a wrong sign. I'm waiting for my disability check. Everybody's waiting for their disability check. Why would you want to collect money? Until I found out, just like a prostitute has headmen to put them out on the street, I'm finding out so does the homeless. So does these people on the street. There are true homeless people out there. But it could be a racket. And one show I'm going to do, I'm going to stand out there. You may not know it's me because I'm going to disguise myself, but I want to see how many people give me money. I will donate that to charity. How many people will give you to a cause because they feel sorry for somebody, and yet these people, there's no causes. Everything's illegal. And then I sit back and I'm saying all the vets that I have, that it's a shame they lost their homes. They don't have food. And these are the people. And sometimes, one year I did a survey, and I stopped people and I said, I want to know what you did before you came onto the street. And he said, I lost everything. I lost my wife, lost my home, lost my business. But these people, I wanted always to know, how did they become homeless? Who are these people? So much percent was the people from the Vietnam War. So many from the Iraq War. And so many because their homes went into foreclosure. When I heard their homes went in foreclosure, when I heard the VA, I'm saying, there's laws out there. Where did they go to save everything? Who did they go to say, I can't do this, we need the money, just like an attorney. Oh, I'm the attorney, you're not. If you don't have the money, we can't take your case. You go to, if somebody's sick, look at the healthcare system. You can't go in the hospital today. It's the only place you're going to get free health care is in the hospital. Because we're hurting. And yet, how many times when an election comes up, how many times for the next, 20 years, 30 years? If you vote me in, we're going to change health care. Come on, people. Wake up. How many times are we going to hear this and put somebody in and nothing's changed? How many laws, an example is the Fair Debt Collection Act. How many laws, how many years is all these laws going to be amended? Because somebody speaks up and they thought they better shut them up. I'm surprised somebody has not shut me up a long time ago. But you know what? They won't. You know why they won't? Because I have nothing to lose. I have everything up here that I want to give to you. And I have nothing to lose to fight for your rights until you can fight for your own rights. Now, one woman yesterday, she got the message. She did get the message. And she said, you know what? If I didn't hear it from my own eyes with you on a three-way line, I was appalled. I know she was hurting because this was her friend. But she said, you know, Pearl, everything you've done, you're doing this for a consumer. And I never met the woman. But her attorney didn't want the case because he would have to charge her. And on top of it, did her wrong justice, trying to negotiate with a bill collector. And after she and I knew she understood it, because when she lashed back at him and said, why would you even want to negotiate somebody that violated my rights? And I couldn't say nothing, because then he didn't know I was on the other line after I got my piece out. Because he didn't know. And as I said to her, he didn't know. And it's not that I down attorneys. As I said, there's many doctors out there. They're not heart surgeons. You're not going to go to your MD to perform heart surgery on you. So all attorneys aren't the same way either. And then there's many scams out there, and I know it. Many scams out there that people, they're desperate, and they come to you in desperate. And you're at the mercy. You're at their mercy. Especially if you're getting harassed by bill collectors and you go to an attorney's office and they say, file bankruptcy. Get you out of everything. I call it the 10-year curse. One show I will do just on bankruptcy. I call it the 10-year curse. I call it the 10-year curse because that's all an attorney knows on credit laws. And it's pretty sad because I always say, one day, the people will get to know their rights, and you do wake up. Believe it or not, when you see the cards are against you and you're angry, yes, you will wake up. And what I want to do, I'm trying to get as a present, I'm trying to get T-shirts done of the Pearl Polto Show, which you'll see Pearl Polto right in the front. I'm going to be giving away in the future, a couple weeks maybe, Pearl Polto T-shirts. And in order to get one free to anybody out there, just let me know either on Facebook, email with the pearlpolto.net. All you have to do is say what show you liked, so I know where you're looking. What show I liked of the Pearl Polto Show and why. And you will get a free Pearl Polto T-shirt to wear. All you have to do is tell me your size either on Facebook or on my email. So, this is my appreciation for you to getting educated, as long as I know that it's sinking in. And if it sinks in, my legacy all over will say, hey, I heard that before. I heard that from Pearl Polto. And I got the message. Because when you get the message, you're not going to take it no more. Trust me, you're not going to take it no more. And this is why all these years, these laws change. And they change, they're amending. Even the Fair Credit Billing Act, I'm amazed how many credit card companies I talk to. And they'll say, well, I don't know. How many, what's the month on that? Before we're allowed to report it, I said, well, you already did report it as a negative, as 120 days late, and you weren't allowed to. Now, what are you going to do about it? Well, they can dispute it. And I said, no, it's your job. And yet some people, they take the long route, as this gentleman did. I hope he's watching. He said, I've been disputing this from 2009. Well, this is 2012. I said, you did something wrong. You did something wrong to take this long. I mean, the minimum to correct credit is 30 days, not even 7 years. And you've been doing it from 2009. What I'm going to say out there, and this is an important show when I don't have a guest on, because I could say it like it is to you, as if I'm in your living room, your office, your car. If you have a credit problem, and you're tired of getting ripped off, you're tired of getting scammed, you don't know what to do next, you were going to file bankruptcy, all the above, all I'm asking you to do is, one, you can call my toll-free, 1-800-876-CREDIT. I have that sign on my car. I drive a white Mercedes, and it's on the side of my car, and when I drive, people stop me all the time, and they'll say, is that legit? Or, how much do you charge? Or, is it true? And then I do stop, and I talk to them. Because it's the best advertisement when I'm there right there. So sometimes people at least are asking questions. And sometimes people fall for a lot of things. And when I'm saying fall for a lot of things, I was going to do, and I am going to do a show on the scams. But this one woman, and if I have to pick her up, I will. Because she put out $18,000 to a company in Jamaica. She can't pay her bills, but she put out $18,000 to a company in Jamaica because she won the lottery. Or they said to her, you won the lottery, give us $18,000. And she, Western Unit, there. I'm saying, what's wrong with this picture? Are people that much in hope? And then other people will say, oh, I wouldn't have done that. But you do it. You do it. You give away free money every day when you pay the bill collectors. So don't say you wouldn't have done what she did, $18,000 to give it to Jamaica. You're paying bill collectors every day, but you're paying it out of fear. She paid it out of hope that she was going to win $1 million lottery. You're paying it out of fear that they won't take your home. Well, let me assure you, no bill collector. Let me be the first, let me be the last. No bill collector can take your home. And if they did, as I tell my clients, if they ever, anybody, any sheriff department would come into your home, I don't care if you lived in Philadelphia or California, if they came into your home and took a TV or a phone, you know what I say to them? I'll make you rich and famous. Because out of all my 30 years, they better know that law. It's all intimidation. But they say, well, that's a terrorist then. Yes, it is. It's a terrorist in our country. Bill collectors are a terrorist in our country. Congress lets them get away with it. Are there solutions? I've always said I have the solutions. They don't want to listen. They don't want to listen. And now, I have never seen in all my years attorneys going. Now, you have to remember, the Federal Trade Commission, we had all these bill collectors that they had rules. Now, all of a sudden, think about it. The Federal Trade Commission saying to all these attorneys, hey, you're going to have to follow these too. You're breaking a lot of laws. We're getting a lot of complaints. But you see, it's to your advantage because the attorney has to answer to two people. The bill collector has to answer to the Federal Trade Commission. The attorney has to answer to the Federal Trade Commission and the Bar Association. So either way, it's getting to you have the advantage. What I'm asking you to do, if you have a credit problem, go to my website, see what I'm all about, pearlpolto.net, 1-800-876-CREDIT, C-R-E-D. And once that happens, I will call you back that quick. And anybody, free t-shirt, the Pearl Polto Show, go to Facebook, go to the website, and say, you know what, this is one of the shows I watched. I watched show number 5, and this is my opinion. And I will ship out to you, as soon as the orders come in, a free Pearl Polto t-shirt. This is Pearl Polto. Next week, you don't want to miss next week's show. Is your doctor turning you into a drug addict? Well, my guest says yes, and she had no choice. And how many people are dying out there because of their own doctors? Who do you blame? Who do you blame? So you don't want to miss next week's show. It's going to be a great show next week. This is Pearl Polto. As always, making the most of your credit, giving credit where credit's due. And it's definitely not to the attorneys this week. See you next week.
Interest.